Hey everybody, it's Chris with Life 180, and today's video I think is going to be really important. If you are somebody who's looking at buying Index Universal Life, or if you're somebody who sells a lot of Index Universal Life, this may be one of the most important videos that you ever watch when it comes to understanding kind of the internal movement of Index Universal Life. I've been getting a lot of hate comments lately. A lot of the comments, I don't know if you ever watch my videos, I don't allow every comment to hit. I try to respond to every comment, and I try to be really good about being transparent with everything. But I get a lot of haters that are really insulting and use a lot of swears and stuff like that. And for those people, they never go public. And one of the constant threads that I get a lot of is people who think that they're helping their clients and they're doing the right thing by their clients by putting them in an IUL. And on the forefront of this, I want to tell you that I'm not saying Index Universal Life is always bad. I'm just saying I'm a big believer that your expectation management needs to be in alignment with reality, right? And so my problem is not with the product itself, because I don't think if you structure the product properly, if you structure an IUL properly, I don't think it's ever going to blow up and you're going to be in dire straits. However, I do think if you structure a policy in a way that shows that you're going to get $50,000 a year of income, and it only produces, and the reality is, because of performance and fees and moving parts and all that stuff, that it's more likely to produce about $10,000 a year of income. That's a big problem, because if you're banking on $50,000 a year of tax-free income in retirement and it only produces $10,000, and you don't know that that's what it's going to be until 15, 20 years down the road, you're in a lot of trouble, and it's going to be hard to make up for that. So I'm a big believer that you need to make sure that you're investing, you're saving, you're structuring your financial life in a way that's going to get you a predictable result. That's one of the reasons I don't like IUL, because it can't get you a predictable result, but it can get you a predictable result that you can actually set it up so you have a little upside if you set your expectations right. But the problem is most agents, I would say 99% of the agents I know, in fact, I only know probably 2 or 3 that do it really well. And for anybody who wants to buy an IUL, I will connect you to one of the few IUL agents that I actually trust. But that's another conversation. So for this video, what I want to start by talking about is the concept of how does an IUL provide a 0% floor and give you upside of, say, 10%, like a cap rate of 10%. How do they accomplish this? Now, I've heard people like Curtis Ray out there try to break it down and simply say, well, here's what happens. If you put in $10,000 of a premium, what the insurance company does is they take $9,500 of that and they put it into safe money. So that's going to get you your 0% floor. You're going to have some safe money in there. But what they do is they take 5% of it, and they buy call options with it. And so out of $10,000 in this example, they take $9,500 and they'd put it in safe money. And then that $500, that 5% would buy a call option. And that call option would be in an index like the S&P 500. And if that performs well, then you get the upside. So that's how they give you the 0% floor, but the call option could actually get you up to a 10% return. And that's fantastic. Well, guess what? It's not that simple. So it's important to understand that your money is never going into the market. That the $10,000 in this example premium that you're paying, it's not necessarily all going in. You are going to have insurance charges and admin charges and all these different things. But for the sake of simplicity for the example, let's consider that $10,000 is the cash value that you have after all those other things. So in this example, your premium would probably be more in the range of $13,000 to $14,000, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I don't know, depends on how they structured it. But at the end of the day, this is the way it works. It's not as simple as just saying 95% of your premium goes into, or of your cash value goes into a fixed account, and 5% goes into a call option. It doesn't work that way. So here's how it does work. Now, here's what happens. Every life insurance company, I'm going to go to my whiteboard and I'm going to kind of write this out. So every insurance company has a general account, right? I'm going to call it a GA. That general account produces a return, and that general account, insurance companies have been doing this for 170 years plus, right? So they know what they can expect for returns on an annual basis. because of the fact that they are so good at investing long-term. So general accounts right now know that they're going to be able to earn between 3.5 and 4.5%. That's what they know they're going to earn. So what happens is, let's just call it 4% for the sake of argument, for this example. So what would happen is the insurance company says, we know that we can get 4% on our money. And what we're going to do for an IUL is we say, okay, we're going to do the IUL. The IUL, we're going to say after all internal expenses, fees, insurance charges, all those different things, you're going to have $10,000 of cash value in that policy. So what they do is they say, we know that that can earn 4%. That 4% equals $400 in profit. So we know that by you giving us your $10,000 and giving us control, we're going to create a 4% result. And this is how we give you the 0% floor. We're going to take that $400 profit that we know we can, that we know we're going to achieve, and we're going to buy a call option with it, right? So we're going to buy a call option for $400, and we're going to associate that to your account. So the call option is going to be in an index. Let's call it the S&P, right? So here's the deal. So that seems all fine and good, right? So what happens there is you look at this and now the question becomes, I've been talking a lot about cap rates getting reduced, internal fees going up, all these different moving parts of IULs that make me extremely uncomfortable. I want to explain why in more detail. And I know I haven't gotten into this, and I know most index universal life agents do not understand this, cannot explain this, but here's the way it works. So if we look at why cap rates have gone down in companies over the past, 10 years, since 2010, 11, cap rates have been going down in the greatest bull market we've ever had. Why? Because of two factors. Interest rates going down, so the fixed returns inside of their general account here have gone down. Dividend rates inside of an insurance company have gone down, right? So actually, let me go to this page here. So let me talk about that. So in 2010, let's talk about what the general fund was doing. The general account, general fund, general account used synonymously with each other. It's the same concept. The general accounts were doing between 6.5 and 8%. Right? So let's just say it was 7%, just for the sake of argument. So in 2010, the average general fund performance was, let's say, 7%. So if you had the same $10,000, what would happen? That $10,000 would produce a $700 guaranteed return. They knew they'd be able to get you a $700 return on your $10,000. So that $700 would buy call options, and therefore that upside for you, you'd have the 0% floor, because if they lost that, you'd still be left with your $10,000, right? But if you won, then you bought more call options with the $700, so you had a higher cap rate. That's how it worked. Now that's not the case. So here's the other part of the equation that doesn't get talked about enough, and this is why it's getting worse and worse and worse, and this is why you need to be extremely careful. Companies have been getting really creative, and I'm going to touch on this, and I'm actually going to make a new video specifically diving into this more, but check this out. You need to understand this. So what happens is, this is going to blow your mind. So in 2010, you buy a call option for S&P. Let's just call it the S&P or Dow, doesn't matter. Any of the big ones, Russell 2000, whatever. But they buy the call option with that $700 there. But here's the bottom line. What's happened since 2010 to 2021? Call options have gone up in price. Right? So with call options going up in price, what happens? Now we're living in an environment, instead of the $700 to work with, we're dealing with $400, right? And I know I've talked a lot about the fact that in a reducing interest rate environment, that the fixed performance of the general account is low. You can never separate the performance of an IUL from the general fund, and this is going to explain to you why that is the case. So in 2010, we had that $700. Now we have $400. But in 2010, the cost of options were lower. You have to research this. Every option costs a different amount of money. If you want to buy an option on the S&P, it's a different price than the Dow. It's a different price than the Russell 2000. It's a different price than any other individualized stock, any other individualized investment, any other individualized index, right? So every option is different, but what I will tell you is that the cost, go research it, go Google it, the cost of options for the S&P 500, the cost of options for the Dow Jones, the cost of options for the Russell 2000, all the major indexes, the option costs have gone through the roof. So now you're dealing with a fraction of the money and you're dealing with more expensive options. So it actually buys you less options. Therefore, that's why the cap rates have come down. Does that make sense? So here's where it gets really shady. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shift over to my computer screen here. And I want to use this as an example. Somebody sent me this and they say, well, our product is way better, right? Our product is different. We have uncapped indexes. It looks fantastic. And, you get to participate in the market and it is what it is. And this is what I would caution everybody is the problem with agents in general and with people not understanding how this stuff works. So look at this, the 1-year cap rate S&P 500. So this is the example of using a good index. The S&P 500 is predictable. We all know what it is. It's the most consistent, oldest index in the industry in the world. And so check this out. It's got a 30-year historical average of 6.66, illustrated rate of 5.96 is what you're allowed to do, right? 0.5 is the guarantee, so it actually has above a 0% floor on the illustrated rate, but the floor rate is 0.5 right now, but down to a 0% guarantee, so they could reduce that to 0 if they wanted to. The cap rate is actually 9.5. That seems conservative, but I think it's overplayed. The maximum they're going to allow you to illustrate this, so if you were a client that was looking to buy this, they could illustrate it and they would illustrate it for you at 6.10 for the most part. Some agents say, oh, well, I'm going to be really conservative and go to 5.5. That's still not even close to where it needs to be. This product, I wouldn't illustrate more than 4.5%, and that's even pushing it for me. Maybe using the 1-year cap S&P 500, that could work, the 4.5% rate. I might be okay with that. But that's the danger. And they give you 100% participation rate, meaning if you have a 9.5% cap and the market goes up 9.5%, you're going to get 100% of all that 9.5% up to that amount. But here's the problem. Like I said, the cost of the options for the S&P 500 have gotten expensive. So this product literally got released last year. World Financial Group sells it. I'm going to do a video specifically breaking down why you should never buy this product. This is where it gets crazy. This JP Morgan Mosaic 2 index. I'm not going to get into all these. I'll do it on another video. But just using this one example right here, you can see it's 135% cap rate or 135% participation rate with an uncapped cap rate, meaning if the policy did 20%, you'd participate at 135% of that. It seems amazing, right? But the reality is it's not so amazing. And like I said, you'll have to get into it for another video. The point I'm showing you for this is that this index, what do? They show a 7.69% 30-year historical average. Well, guess what? The 2-year JP Morgan Mosaic shows a 30-year historical average of 10.52%. So what is my problem with that? Well, my problem with that is those indexes were created at the same time this product was, pretty much. Like I can't confirm, but my assumption is they partnered with JP Morgan and created this index just to show, because they outlawed companies creating fictitious indexes, insurance companies creating these fictitious indexes of their own to create indexing strategies, because then they could manipulate them. So you can look these up and you can actually look up every single one of these, for instance. And like I said, I'll do another video, but you'll see that these indexes are not that old. And so what does that mean? That means a 30-year historical average doesn't matter. If they created these and they are doing it just for these products, what happens is you could pick any products, any pool of products that you want, any basket of products that you want to create whatever result you want from a backtesting perspective, and it looks fantastic. It's going to illustrate beautifully, right? But the bottom line is that doesn't mean it's going to perform well. That doesn't mean anything. And so what happens is, you have all these moving parts, the 190% participation rate on an uncapped market. That means if the market does 20%, then you're going to get 38%. I've got this guy who's like, oh, I've had a person who did 61% in his policy. Is that possible? Yes, it is. It is possible. In a complete outlier situation, somebody can do that. And what I would say, though, is people are selling those as the possibilities and as the expected result. But the bottom line is that doesn't change the fact that you can never separate the performance of the insurance company's general account from the performance of an IUL. You can't make the IUL better than the general fund long term because of the way that they buy the options. It's not just your money. They're taking a portion of the general fund, applying it to you. And guess what? If it were the case that that strategy made sense, that it worked that way, if insurance companies had this licked and they had it figured out to where it made sense, think about it. In an environment where it's hard for them to get returns, where a general fund right now is saying, man, we're having a hard time getting 4%. That we're having a hard time producing a predictable 4% result in our general fund. We've got billions and billions of dollars under management. We've got a ton of leverage. We've been doing this for 170 years and we're having a hard time getting 4%. If this concept of an IUL having this upside potential being so amazing was so locked in and drilled perfectly and they had it down to where it was that good, why wouldn't they just do it for everybody's money? Why wouldn't they be doing that for the entire general account? They're not doing it for that. Why? Because it's just a bit of a sales gimmick. Can it work on a year-to-year basis? It can. You can have outlier situations where it's fantastic, but the bottom line is there's a cost to everything, and the cost in the IULs is all the moving parts and the moving expenses and the increased charges and the admin fees and the insurance charges and the cap rate reductions. That's where they really get you. And the reality is the cap rates always come down. The important thing to understand is that the marketed cap rates right now are always marketed and they pay them at the beginning as the cap rates that they are. And so they look great, but they always reduce those cap rates. So for instance, this cap rate that I showed you in the JP Morgan Mosaic 2 had 190% participation rate on an uncapped market. Well, guess what? That goes down to a guarantee of 125% participation rate. That's a huge difference, right? I guarantee you, once this product is a couple years old, they're going to drop that down and the charges are going to go up and it's not going to perform the way that you want because that's how it happens every single time. I'm telling you, go to look at go look at Pacific Life. I'm thinking two things at the same time. Look at Pacific Life, look at Minnesota, look at Transamerica, look at North American, all of these companies have reduced their cap rates on old products. They sell, let me give you an example. National Life Group, same thing. What happens is, I'm going to use National Life Group because that's the company I know the best. You could go back to 2009 when I first joined, and cap rates were 16.5%, 17%, right? It's crazy. So what happened is then in 2011, they came out with a new product and that cap rate was like 15%. And then they came out with a new product and it was 14%. And then they slowly reduced the cap rates on the products that they're selling to like 11 or 10%. I don't even know what it is right now, but let's just say it's 10%. So in what they do is they say, well, our cap rates over the last decade have shrank a little bit from, well, not a little, that's still significant. I mean, it's a 30%, actually more than that, like 45% reduction in cap rates over that period of time. But the bottom line is this, think about it this way. If you drop from 16 to 10 on the marketed rate, that is an expense. They're willing to pay more on the cap rates out of the gate, because if they illustrated what they actually are going to pay in cap rates, nobody would ever buy these things. And if you want to know how to discover what they're going to pay for a cap rate, you have to simply look at what their equity indexed annuity is paying compared to what their indexed universal life is paying, because it's the same methodology. They fund the annuities with the same methodology for an index annuity as they do with an IUL, but the difference is the use of the annuity is different. They have to guarantee income from it, and the time horizon in which people are going to need access to the money is different. And so therefore they can't be as aggressive on the marketing side of the business. Does that make sense? And so what happens with an IUL is they create a marketing fee. Basically, they basically write off all the money that they're going to give in the high early cap rates of these things as a marketing expense to acquire business. And then like on National Life policies, These cap rates that were 14.5%, 15% 10 years ago are now 6.5%. It's that simple. Why? Because of the fact they never planned on keeping them that high. It's a bait and switch thing. And the bottom line is companies are not legally obligated to disclose what they're reducing cap rates on old sales are. If the IUL is not currently being sold actively by the company, they do not have to disclose what they've reduced the cap rates to. Doesn't that concern you? I don't know about you, but I'm never going to want to invest in a product or save money in a product where I don't have that kind of transparency, and they have all these moving parts and moving variables that are completely at the discretion of the insurance company. And listen, the one thing that I know, and I had a conversation with an actuary one time, and that actuary told me, listen, Chris, we created IULs to shift the risk from the insurance company to the insured. And I don't know about you, but if I'm saving money, I don't want the risk to be shifted on me. If I'm saving money with an insurance company, I want the insurance company to save the risk. If I want to invest and take risk, I'm going to take risk on my own terms and do it outside of an insurance company and not pay the fees and costs and all that stuff for the insurance, because those are just extra expenses that you're taking on for no reason. And if you don't get the benefits of the guarantees that come with it, there's more effective ways to do it. Now, I know a lot of people are selling the tax advantages and all that stuff. That does come into play to a certain extent. But in my opinion, most of the time, the way that they're sold, it doesn't make sense. What I can say is that if you do run them, like if I ran, like for instance, this policy, if I ran it with a 4.5% assumption instead of the 6.10% assumption or the 6.32% assumption in the Zebra Edge, for example, or 7.39 assumption in the Mosaic 2 JP Morgan down at the bottom there, if I had those assumptions, if I ran it at 4.5 instead of those, I'd be a little more, comfortable with it. It'd still be taking risk. Is it risk that I'd be willing to take? Maybe. If I'd be happy with what I saw in the illustration, I may do it. Personally, I wouldn't, I guess, but I could see why people may want to take that risk on, and I wouldn't argue with you. If that's your risk tolerance and you understand what you're getting into, then by all means, go do it. But if you're getting sold at the 7% or 6% or greater illustrated rate assumption, and you look at it, and the reason you're buying is because you look at those results and you've been sold on the fact that those are conservative, and you're looking at like the income that it's going to create and all that stuff, I'm telling you right now, be very, very cautious. And if you are the agent that's selling that, I really encourage you to dig deeper in this, ask questions. Don't just believe your manager. Don't just trust them. I know these companies, World Financial Group, PHP, these companies are just teaching and just telling you all the good things about this stuff, and they're not teaching you the downsides to it. So I really encourage you to do your own research. Hopefully, I'm just kind of pushing you in the right direction. I truly am not just a hater of IUL. I'm just a hater of people selling products the wrong way and getting people into trouble. I just want to protect consumers. I want people to understand what they're getting involved with. I'm really passionate about what I do here. I'm really passionate about educating people to do the right thing. I think we have a serious crisis on our hands coming up. I think we're in an environment where people have a massive lack of financial literacy, a massive lack of financial stewardship, and I think people are getting involved in Index Universal Life because of the fact that they want to solve that problem, but you're not solving the problem if you're selling it, and if you're buying it with the wrong assumptions, you're actually potentially putting yourself in a worse situation. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. If you did find value in this video, please click the like button. YouTube loves obviously the analytics of all that, and it gets it out to more people. And this video specifically, I'm really passionate about. I want to get it out there. So if you would feel free to share it on social media, if you go on TikTok, if you go on Instagram, share it, tag at Real Chris Kirkpatrick on either of those platforms. Would be just honored and grateful for that. And if you ever want to reach out, if you have questions about any of this stuff as an agent, as a client, just reach out to me. I'm not licensed. I cannot sell you anything, but I have access to IUL people I trust, to whole life people that I trust, to people that can help you in all sorts of different ways. The person that you work with is extremely important. Make sure that they're completely educated and they understand all the moving parts with this stuff before you work with them. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, click the bell. That way you get notified every single time I launch a new video, because I got a lot more videos coming out. And like I said, I am going to be doing a deep dive on this product right here. And so be on the lookout for that. And if you subscribe and hit that bell, you will get notified when that video comes out. So be on the lookout. I think it's going to be good. If you work with the World Financial Group, or if you're thinking about buying from World Financial Group, that product is specifically the New Heights Accumulator product. And so you're going to want to see that and I think once you do, you probably won't want to sell it anymore, and you probably won't buy it. So anyway, I hope you have a blessed, inspirational day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.